Hello, and thank you for your continued support of Fuel Motivation. In today's video, we have David Goggins speaking on why hard work solves all problems. Enjoy.
So, same with you. What happened with me was so who I was this nobody guy. And I created this Goggins. And that Goggins, there's David Goggins and there's Goggins. David Goggins is a calm, cool guy that sits back. Used to be weak kid. Mm-hmm. Now he's just a normal guy. Mm-hmm. Goggins is a guy that is willing to tape up his legs to go after it. In that book, you read about David Goggins and also Goggins. What I realized in my life is that Goggins is who I love. Goggins is who I created. Mm-hmm. My dad created David Goggins. I created Goggins. So what's happening with me, and since Can't Hurt Me came out, and since I got on social media, which is why I fucking don't like social media, which is why I'm not on there very much, which is why I give people one time, I have to do me. I have to do me. So people get it fucking twisted, man. I am who I am. What's in that book is me. So now what they see is this guy who's trying to get people to get off their fucking ass. That just happened to happen, man. I didn't set out. When I set out to be a fucking SEAL and set out to go to Ranger School and all this other shit I did and break records, I didn't set out to fucking please motherfuckers. I didn't set out to say, hey, pay me now. I got a great fucking story. Fuck that. And I realize now that my life has kind of gotten to a point where people know me, I have followers and whatnot. The biggest depression of my life is you get caught up into helping so many people out, and it's great, and I love that, but you lose yourself in all of that shit. True. It literally, and people go, man, but my God, like you're changing. I get all that shit, man. But what the fuck is motivating you in that book? What's motivating you is the fucking stories I'm telling you about what I did in my life. Once I stop living that, I'm no more. I am not the fucker that you are now being motivated from. So right now in the mirror, I now got back to Goggins. I'm now back to running 100 miles a week. I'm now back to getting the fuck. I saw, and I talk to my girl about it all the time. You travel, you speak, you all this shit. Mm-hmm. It's all fucking great and dandy for most people. I'm Goggins. What makes me is the dungeon. Mm-hmm. And people go, well, oh my God, like they're gonna hear this, my God, you don't have any peace in your life. Don't get it fucking twisted. Mm-hmm. Weak people who hear me get all fucking poopy pants about how I talk. So be it. What changed me was I had to be hard on myself. And I have to continue to grind myself into a fine dust. Period. Yeah. That's where I feel good. Mm-hmm. I feel like I accomplished something. If things come easy, it's not fun. I must fail at something repeatedly. It has to haunt me. And then once I complete it, I feel like I accomplished something. I don't want to set out and say, oh, there's an A. We're good. Right. It's fucking stupid. No, I want to turn it in a million times and say, you failed. You failed. And I'll say, okay, roger that. And sit there and analyze what I'm doing wrong. Go to these places that people don't go to anymore because all this fucking social media shit and everything's computerized. I want to go to that dark place in my mind and say, okay, how are we going to get this done? When you sit down and you're not smart and you have a disability and you still want to be at the top of your class, I didn't want to just get by. When I realized that I can learn through hard work and I can beat the valedictorian in school, but I got put in 10 hours more a day than he does. You know what kind of strength comes from that? When you're sitting down, that guy that valedictorian studied for an hour, and you know, I caught you, and I am dumb, but I have the work ethic to catch you. That's where David Goggins got really invented, was at a kitchen table with 20 spiral notebooks that were empty. And then 3 months later, they were full. And when you can go through that, I still have them in my storage unit. You go through these spiral notebooks of your life, and you realize, this is how I learned. This is unbelievable. There's no miles. It's not about the miles. It's that. Having a discipline every day to say, for me to learn this one math problem, it's going to take me 10 hours. And that's where and you realize through hard work, you can outwork anybody, no matter how badass they are. But that's the part people don't want to dive into.
It turns out that the way that we're constructed neurophysiologically is that we don't experience any positive emotion unless we have an aim and we can see ourselves progressing towards that aim. It isn't precisely attaining the aim that makes us happy. As you all know, if you've ever attained anything, because as soon as you attain it, then the whole little game ends. Then you have to come up with another game, right? So it's Sisyphus, and that's okay. But it does show that the attainment can't be the thing that drives you because it collapses the game. That's what happens when you graduate from university. It's like you're king of the mountain for one day, and then you're like surf at Starbucks for the next 5 years, you know? So, yeah. So what happens is that human beings are weird creatures because we're much more activated by having an aim and moving towards it than we are by attainment. And what that means is you have to have an aim, and that means you have to have an interpretation. And it also means that the nobler the aim, that's one way of thinking about it, the better your life. And that's a really interesting thing to know because, you know, you've heard ever since you were tiny that you should act like a good person and you shouldn't lie, for example. And you might think, well, why the hell should I act like a good person and why not lie? I mean, even a 3-year-old can ask that question because smart kids learn to lie earlier, by the way. And they think, well, why not twist the fabric of reality so that it serves your specific short-term needs? I mean, that's a great question. Why not do that? Why act morally? If you can get away with something and it brings you closer to something you want, well, why not do it? These are good questions. It's not self-evident. Well, it seems to me tied in with what I just mentioned. It's like you destabilize yourself and things become chaotic. That's not good. And if you don't have a noble aim, then you have nothing but shallow, trivial pleasures, and they don't sustain you. And that's not good because life is so difficult, it's so much suffering, it's so complex. It ends and everyone dies and it's painful. It's like without a noble aim, how can you withstand any of that? You can't. You become desperate, and once you become desperate, things go from bad to worse very rapidly when you become desperate. And so there's the idea of the noble aim. And it's not something, it's something that's necessary. It's the bread that people cannot live without, right? That's not physical bread. It's the noble aim. What you're looking for in a text, and in the world for that matter, is sufficient order and direction. So then we have to think, well, what does sufficient order and direction means? Well, you don't want to suffer so much that your life is unbearable, right? That just seems self-evident. Pain argues for itself. I think of pain as the fundamental reality because no one disputes it. Say, well, you don't want any more of that than is absolutely necessary. And I think that's self-evident. And then you say, well, wait a minute, it's more complicated than that. You don't want any more of that that's necessary today, but also not tomorrow and not next week and not next month and not next year. So however you act now, better not compromise how you're going to be in a year because that would just be counterproductive.